Hello, and welcome to Budget Commander. On this channel, we'll discuss Magic the Gathering topics with a focus on playing Commander on a budget. We'll cover things like deck building, top cards, deck techs, and more. Let's get started. Hello friends, today we have a Commander Shootout Episode 2 for you of Season 1. This is Sevinne the Chronoclasm versus Volrath the Shapestealer. These are both budget decks. I got links to the deck tech videos in the description below if you want to check those out. But all the cards in the decks are $2 or under. The Volrath the Shapestealer deck is an Infect deck. The goal is to try to kill off your opponents with Infect damage. And the Sevinne deck is just a value deck. Lots of flashback cards, Spellslinger strategy. So, Sevinne's gonna start us off by playing an island, and he'll pass the turn to Volrath, who plays a Golgari Guildgate, which enters tapped and can tap for either a black or green, and passes the turn back to Sevinne, who plays Ash Baron as a land, giving him colorless mana, and he'll pass back to Volrath, who will play a swamp, and then Volrath's gonna play Glistener Elf for 1 green. It's a 1/1 with Infect, so it deals poison counters to players and -1/-1 counters to creatures. And then Volrath will pass back to Sevinne, who plays Ghost Quarter, which can tap for a colorless. You can also sacrifice the Ghost Quarter and destroy a land, and then its controller gets to search up a basic library and put it onto the battlefield. A basic land from the library, sorry. And then he'll cast a Talisman of Creativity, which taps for colorless or can tap for blue-red and deal 1 damage to yourself or to Sevinne. Then Volrath's going to go directly to combat and attack Sevinne for 1. This deals 3 poison counters to Sevinne because he'll cast Mutagenic Growth and for 1 green using the Golgari Guildgate. And then second main phase, Volrath's going to play Simic Growth Chamber, which will bounce the swamp back to his land. Comes in tap, but when it does tap, it adds a green and blue. And then passes it back to Sevinne, who will activate his Ghost Quarter and sacrifice it to destroy a Simic Growth Chamber. And then Volrath's going to decide to get an island to replace it. Sevinne's then going to play an island himself, and he will play Gutter Snipe, triggering his Talisman of Creativity, dealing 1 damage to himself. Gutter Snipe's a 2/2 creature, and whenever Sevinne casts an instant or sorcery, he's going to deal 2 damage to each opponent. Then we've got a Temple of the False Gods entering the battlefield on Volrath's side of the table. And then he's going to pass the turn back to Sevinne. Sevinne's going to untap and go to the face with the Gutter Snipe, and Volrath's going to choose not to block, bringing his life total down to 38. And then Sevinne's going to play his own Temple of the False God, which taps for 2, as long as he's got 5 mana on both of these yet, or 5 lands. Both players are not looking great on the lands there. And then Volrath's going to play Rogue's Passage, really good in an Infect deck, because you can pay 4 to make one of your creatures unblockable, but it also taps for a colorless. Then Volrath's going to go to combat, deal another poison counter to Sevinne, bringing his poison count up to 4. Probably should have said this earlier, but if you didn't know, if a player gets 10 poison counters or more, that player loses the game. So instead of having to take 40 damage or 21 commander damage, you lose if you get 10 poison counters or Infect damage. Sevinne's going to start his turn, go to combat, swing for 2, bringing Volrath down to 36, and then second main, he's going to cast the Tormenting Voice, discarding a card to draw 2 cards. Did have to use the Talisman of Creativity for a red, so Sevinne's going to lose a life, but it also triggers the Gutter Snipe, so Volrath's going to take an extra 2 damage. And then we see Volrath play a Swamp, go to combat, and swing for 1 poison damage with the Glistener Elf. And second main, I guess pass to Sevinne, who's going to play a crackling counterpart, copying the Gutter Snipe, which triggered the Gutter Snipe, and then go to combat and deal 2 more damage to Volrath. On untap, Volrath's going to play the Invisible Stalker. It's a 1/1 unblockable hexproof creature. And then pass the turn back to Sevinne. Sevinne's going to go to the face with both the Gutter Snipes. Volrath's going to go down to 26 as a result. And then second main phase, Sevinne's going to cast his Deep Analysis, which is going to trigger both of his Gutter Snipes, and he's going to draw 2 cards off of it. Passing back to Volrath. Volrath's going to play Karn's Bastion. You can pay 4 on this one to proliferate. Proliferate means you can give any number of permanents or players an extra counter of whatever kind they already have. So he can just, if he gets enough turns, untaps, Karn's Bastion's going to be able to win the game for Volrath here. Really good in Infect as well. And then going to cast Volrath the Shapestealer. He's going to come to the battlefield. At the beginning of combat, he can put a -1/-1 counter on a creature, and also he can pay 1 to copy the abilities of creatures with counters. And then going to combat, Volrath's going to trigger, giving one of the Gutter Snipes a -1/-1 counter, and the other 2 creatures are going to get in, dealing 1 regular damage from the Invisible Stalker and a poison counter from the Glistener Elf. Sevinne's going to untap and play an Azorius Locket, finally getting white, and pass the turn. At the start of the turn, Volrath's going to activate his Karn's Bastion, proliferating on the poison counter Sevinne has, as well as the -1/-1 counter the Gutter Snipe has, killing off the Gutter Snipe. And then play Woodland Cemetery for turn, and activate his own -1/-1 ability at the beginning of combat, giving the Gutter Snipe a -1 counter. And then he's going to swing all in with all his creatures. Gutter Snipe's going to choose to block the Glistener Elf, so those 2 creatures will trade. And then Sevinne's going to take some regular combat damage, bringing his life total down to 29. And then second main phase, Volrath's going to cast the Viridian Corruptor, which enters and destroys the Azorius Locket, and is also a 2/2 creature with Infect. And we're going to see Sevinne untap and play the Talisman of Conviction, and then cast a Frantic Search, which is going to allow him to draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards and untap 3 lands. So gaining a land or a mana there from the Temple of the False God. And then recasts Deep Analysis for flashback, so he'll lose 3 life and draw a couple extra cards. Play the Boros Guildgate, which enters tapped and adds red-white. And pass the turn to Volrath. Volrath is going to play an island and activate his Karn's Bastion, proliferating the poison counters. So Sevinne's up to 8, and then going to move to combat, which is going to effectively knock out Sevinne. Sevinne ended up taking 10 poison combat damage. It was also at 14 commander damage and 18 life in general. So good showing from Volrath, and he's going to get to move on to the next round. Highlights from Sevinne's deck. Pretty cool to see the Gutter Snipe and copy of Gutter Snipe. If that could have gotten some more instants and sorceries played, would have been able to deal quite a bit of damage, but didn't work out for Sevinne. We also didn't get to see Sevinne at all. Kind of a disappointment. Didn't get any white mana sources from lands, and each time he got an artifact, it got blown up until the point where it didn't matter because he was so far behind. All stars or highlights from Volrath's deck. Really cool to be able to put a -1 counter on a creature and kill off those utility creatures. And then it's super important for poison decks to have a card like Glistener Elf, where it can come out early and get in that important infect damage or poison damage, so that your proliferate effects like Karn's Bastion can win you the game slowly over time if you can't get through with combat damage later on. There's the standings after round 1. Hope you guys enjoyed this gameplay video, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace! Thanks for watching. You can help support this channel by hitting that subscribe button. This will help keep you up to date on content from Budget Commander. If you liked the video, make sure you like the video. Leave me a comment with your thoughts on this topic, and if you think someone else could benefit from this video, feel free to share. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk with you next time.